Hellraiser's iconic Pinhead is a touchstone of cinematic horror, but he didn't begin that way. In fact, he's not even called Pinhead until the third movie. It took multiple movies to make the Hell Priest into the monster we know and love. This is his story in its gruesome entirety. So, what is Pinhead? While he's presented as a simple extra-dimensional pain monster in the original Hellraiser, later movies in the series dive into Pinhead's backstory, revealing that he was once a British soldier named Elliot Spencer who served in World War I. Pinhead's human origins are first indicated in the second film, Hellbound, when an old photograph forces Pinhead to remember his former life. Prior to his time in the Hell dimension, the monster was just a man who took up arms in service to his country, only to have his faith in humanity shaken during the Battle of Flanders. Doug Bradley, who played Pinhead in most of the Hellraiser films, once explained how Spencer went from a charismatic leader of men to someone seeking out the kind of pain doled out by the Cenobites. In the DVD commentary for Hellraiser 3: Hell on Earth, Bradley recalled watching a war documentary and being influenced by it, saying, "One of the guys said this extraordinary thing I just grabbed hold of, talking about all his comrades who had died on the first day of the Battle of the Somme. He felt as though he had cheated, that he was in the wrong place, that he shouldn't have lived, that he should be dead, and he should have been buried along with his comrades in France. And I thought that's exactly Elliot's thing." Trying to deal with the trauma of war sends Elliot Spencer down a path that leads him to some pretty dark places. The first thing you need to know about Pinhead is that he's a Cenobite. These types of creatures live in another dimension and are characterized by their extensive mutilation and obsession with pain and ritual torture. Anyone unlucky enough to come in contact with them and their hell dimension is subject to any number of outlandish punishments. Almost all of the Cenobites were humans before being transported into the hell dimension by opening a cursed puzzle box, and these unlucky souls become servants of Leviathan. Pinhead's specific group is known as the Order of the Gash, which is kind of a religious sect. We learn in Hellraiser 2 and 3 that Elliot Spencer himself was drawn to the box that serves as a key to the Hell dimension while testing his limits for pain. The first scene of this series shows a similarly adventurous Frank Cotton being torn to shreds by meat hooks after discovering the box on a trip to Morocco. Of course, Frank makes an attempt to come back to our world while Spencer becomes Pinhead and gets quite cozy as the leader of the Order of the Gash. The backstory of the box that leads to Pinhead's world is nearly as detailed as the creature's own origin. The Lament configuration is a puzzle box created by architect, mass murderer, and all-around pervert Philippe Le Marchand. In the Hellraiser comics, when he wasn't creating intricate cathedrals or killing indiscriminately, the French artisan would build puzzle boxes meant to reveal deeply held secrets or satisfy dark desires for anyone who could solve them. In the movies, however, Le Marchand is just a toy maker. The Lament configuration is just one such box, created while Le Marchand was working as a toy maker. He made the box for a rich duke with a penchant for murder and an extreme interest in occult practices. Solving the box sets the Cenobites free to enact their elaborate tortures and probably drag you to hell too, where you'll be flayed into another grotesque monster.
The box. You opened it. We came.
It's just a puzzle box!
Pinhead's story grows far more fleshed out in Hellraiser 3, which spends much of its time exploring human misery and war. Naturally, Pinhead shares how he felt as a human soldier, watching so many of his fellow countrymen perish on the front lines. Pinhead, as Elliot Spencer, plainly states that his disrupted faith in people and God after the war led him to experiment with torture. Pain, to Pinhead, is truth, and everything else is noise. The degradation of war is the final discovery, the endpoint of civilization, the only thing in a world full of falsehoods. Everyone will figure it out in the end. He just got there a little faster. The story of what Pinhead actually is can get a little muddled. The first two films show him as a nameless demon, then a former human on a quest to inflict pain, which he sees as necessary. During that second film, however, Elliot Spencer's spirit is trapped in limbo. What's left behind, without Spencer's humanity, is a completely evil Pinhead, at least until the end of the third movie. But there's an alternate story presented by the 1993 Pinhead comic miniseries, which claims that Pinhead is just the latest reincarnation of an ancient Aztec deity, Xipa-Totec. While Xipa-Totec was an agricultural god associated with the regular rebirth of seasons, He also ritually flayed himself to feed humanity, sometimes even peeling off his skin entirely to reveal a golden body underneath. His followers believed that Totec invented the concept of war and desired human sacrifices, much the way the Cenobites constantly need new humans to torture. Hellraiser creator Clive Barker himself has made the religious elements of Pinhead's story explicit. If naming their dimension Hell and having Pinhead deliver a treatise against God wasn't enough, several of the movies refer to him as a priest or even a pope.
I am the way.
Pinhead himself is a little more humble about the whole thing, calling himself an explorer in the further regions of experience. He does admit, however, to encouraging holy connotations and says that depending on temperament, people view the Cenobites as either angels or demons. If Barker had his way, the character would be known as a leader of Hell first and a guy with pins sticking out of his face last, saying in an interview, "In my original script, Pinhead didn't even have a name. Pinhead was the name that the special effects guy used, actually." I was like, wait a second, you just named my villain Pinhead? Because I didn't think that sounded very dignified, but it ended up on the call sheet and it just stuck. Pinhead's personal story doesn't advance much through most of the films in the series. He shows up for a few minutes and generally leaves with a few new Cenobites. But the 10th film in the series, 2018's Hellraiser Judgment, found Pinhead tied up in a cosmic battle, revealing that God and the Cenobites have different plans for serial killers. Hell would like to claim them for their own, but Heaven wants to let some run free to instill godly fear in people. Pinhead interferes with the plans of God and kills an angel sent to negotiate. Because of Pinhead's actions, a serial murderer is killed in defiance of God's plan.
Probably should not have done that.
Consumed with wrath, God punishes Pinhead in the only way he can. Because Pinhead is, at his core, a seeker of pain and a leader in hell, God takes all that away from him by making him a mortal man. Putting him back on Earth and forcing him to live without his constant tortures is the cruelest thing one could do to the monster, and that's exactly how Hellraiser Judgment leaves him. Just a regular guy again. What could be crueler? But that's not the end of Pinhead's story. Hellraiser Bloodline, the 4th film in the series, had already taken a giant leap forward into the year 2127, where Pinhead again has returned to his full glory and has attempted to create an unsealable gateway to Hell. Cenobites would no longer have to rely on puzzle boxes to return to Earth. At the same time, a distant ancestor of the original creator of the Lament configuration, an engineer named Paul Merchant, no doubt an amplification of Philippe le Marchand, wants to undo the wrongdoings of his family and devises a machine called the Elysium configuration, which would destroy all portals to Hell permanently. Luring all of the Cenobites to a space station called the Minos, Merchant activates the device, which is actually the entire space station. The giant machine folds itself into a massive box of mirrors and perpetual light, destroying Pinhead and the Cenobites forever. What happened in the century between Hellraiser Judgment and the year 2127? We'll just have to wait and find out. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite horror movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.